Hey there guys, Matthew here from the Who Addicts and welcome to my worst possible series 2019, which is basically the opposite to the best possible series, which I uploaded a couple of days ago. And basically it's like the best possible series, except instead of picking my favourite series opener, my favourite episode 2, my favourite episode 3, I pick my least favourite, going from Series 1, of course, now involving Series 11. And because I went through a lot of the episodes from Series 11 and I summed them up and spoke about other episodes in the modern series in the best possible series, I do urge you to go and watch that video first, just because I don't want to be repeating myself in this video, of course. So nevertheless, let's have a look at what my worst possible series was last time I updated it after Series 10. So as you can see, my least favourite series opener was New Earth, followed by my least favourite episode 2, which was Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. That was followed by Victory of the Daleks, The Power of Three, The Girl Who Died, The Woman Who Lived, The Idiot's Lantern, Let's Kill Hitler, Sleep No More, In the Forest of the Night, Fear Her, Hell Bent, The Wedding of River's Song, and The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. Good grief. If you ever want to torture a Doctor Who fan, just get them to watch that list of episodes in that order. I mean, you'd already be long gone by the time you get to Hellbent, but then watching that, The Wedding of River Song, and The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe in order, good grief. Jesus Christ. One day, I will do a live stream marathoning my worst possible series, and it will probably be the worst day of my life. Anyway, let's go through every single episode from Series 11 and see if any made it in to my worst possible series. So starting off with episode 1, of course, we have The Woman Who Fell to Earth, which is going up against New Earth. Both have Earth in the title, I've just realised. But The Woman Who Fell to Earth, as I said in my last video, it's a solid series opener. It's, far from the best, and I'm just going to say this now, spoilers for the best possible series, but no episodes from Series 11 made it into my best possible series. But The Woman Who Fell to Earth won't be in my worst either. To be honest with you, this spot was between New Earth or Asylum of the Daleks. And I've kept New Earth in there. It will remain to be my least favourite series opener. Because there's just nothing memorable about it. I think most series openers, they're never blockbuster episodes that are, the greatest of the series. They're always a little bit laid back and comedic. But, compare it to Rose or Partners in Crime or anything like that, Smith and Jones, they all had memorable aspects to them. But I think because we'd already established the 10th Doctor and Rose in A Christmas Invasion, New Earth didn't really feel like a series opener, and even then you've got Cassandra as the villain, who I didn't think was that great. The scenes where she was possessing the 10th Doctor and Rose, I didn't like them either. There's just nothing about this episode that makes me want to go back and re-watch it. And Asylum of the Daleks, it's an episode that's not really fondly remembered by anyone, mostly because the Daleks had another complete misfire. They weren't great in that episode either, but I think New Earth will stick and remain to be my least favourite series opener. Episode 2, of course, we have The Ghost Monument, which is far from a memorable episode, but I do think it just has enough nice scenes in there, whether it's between Graham and the Doctor, or Ryan and the Doctor, or at the end when the Doctor is reunited with her TARDIS. I think them scenes alone are good enough to make it not be my least favourite episode 2, and of course it's going up against Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which is just a dreadful episode of Doctor Who. There's nothing that I like about it whatsoever, and even the 11th Doctor, who can usually save a poor script, I thought was really irritating in that episode, really immature. It was an episode that attempted to be funny and cute and nice, and it just didn't hit the mark at all. And yeah, it's a Chris Chibnall episode as well, which isn't too encouraging. The Doctor riding a dinosaur, and the only slightly good thing about that episode was the villain, who actually, Solomon, I did remember his name, played by David Bradley, who I thought was quite a sinister villain. But other than that, nothing that I like about this episode. The characters were thrown together. To be fair, the concept of the episode was thrown together. Not great. It will remain to be my least favourite episode 2. Episode 3, and I have Victory of the Daleks, which is going up against Rosa, and as I said, Rosa, a very, very strong episode. It's not going to be anywhere near my worst possible series. But I will be replacing Victory of the Daleks. And the reason for this is because I think Resolution sort of put into perspective what a good Dalek story is. And it sort of reminded me what I like and what I want from a Dalek story. And I guess maybe we've taken the Daleks for granted a little bit, in past episodes, when they maybe have had good scenes, maybe have had good moments, but overall the story's not been great. And I think Victory of the Daleks, I mostly look back on badly because of how it ended, with the reveal of the Paradigm Daleks, how they were defeated, how they were fooled by a jammy Dodger. It just wasn't great, and it didn't do anything for the Daleks from that point on. But before that, I think the scenes with the 11th Doctor, and there was a lot of pressure on this episode for me on how the 13th Doctor confronted the Daleks for the first time. So it made me think and look back to other Doctor-Dalek confrontations, and it made me appreciate the 11th Doctors, because when he first saw the Daleks, considering it was the third episode in his era, it was very early on, I thought he was fantastic, and when he started hitting it with a giant spanner, it's one of the most violent scenes that we've seen from the Doctor when seeing a Dalek. So I think them scenes alone, I thought were pretty good, and the setting of the World War as well was good. So I think Victory of the Daleks, it's an episode that, in perspective, isn't as bad, and will no longer be my least favourite episode 3. That's getting replaced by The Curse of the Black Spot, which I do believe was in my worst possible series a good few years ago, but I didn't like this episode at all. I thought it was very boring, very, very dull. I didn't like how it started off in a pirate ship but then ended up in a space hospital. It had good ideas in there, but it didn't really hit the mark, and if you look at it comparing it to other episode 3s, they're all sort of average to decent. I think this is the only one that falls below average, so it will take the place of Victory of the Daleks and will become my least favourite episode 3. Episode 4, we have a Chris Chibnall script, The Power of Three, faced with another Chris Chibnall script, Arachnids in the UK. Now, The Power of Three is an episode that, again, I never really liked over the last couple of years, but as time goes on, I start comparing it to other episodes that we've maybe had more recently, and it puts it into a different sort of perspective for me. And as much as I still stand by the fact that I do not like how it ended, I do not like how quickly wrapped up the ending was and how poor it was, the rest of the episode was not too bad. Seeing the Doctor with the ponds and living with them, I thought was an interesting concept, an interesting idea. Obviously, Unit were in the episode as well, which, I thought they were a great addition. So other than the ending, The Power of Three can sort of be passed as okay, which is more than can be said for Arachnids in the UK, which means, yes, that's right, for the first time this year in both the best and the worst possible series, a Series 11 episode is being added. And Arachnids in the UK will now become my least favourite episode 4. I sort of spoke about it a little bit in my best possible series, but I will mention it again. It wasn't a good episode. The spiders were creepy on first viewing, but I feel like the more you rewatch this episode, the more the things I liked about it will fade away, and the more the things I disliked about it will just continue to bug me. The ending was nowhere near conclusive enough. I don't remember liking the Doctor too much in this episode. I think it was just the whole issue with Series 11 really was that there was just too much exposition, too slow, not enough, not good enough pacing. The character who was trying to portray Donald Trump just got on my nerves, and the ending wasn't conclusive enough. It was just a poor episode, and I think it will now become my least favourite episode 4. Episode 5, I had The Girl Who Died, which I remember disliking mostly because the 12th Doctor was acting like an absolute buffoon, and it was the first time the 12th Doctor had really done my head in, and the first time I disliked him in his era. But it's going up against the Saranga Conundrum, which was without doubt one of the most boring, dull, unwatchable and jarring episodes in the modern series, and it had a villain which I do not know how people can even remotely like, the Pating, which was built up to be the most dangerous creature in the universe. I mean, I don't know if they were trying to make it, and trying to push the juxtaposition that it's meant to be this menacing villain, but it just looks cute. It just didn't work for me. I didn't like the Pating. I thought it was just a terrible villain, terrible episode, boring as anything. One I will try to never rewatch again unless I really, really have to. It will definitely be my new least favourite episode 5 and will take the place of The Girl Who Died. Yeah, back-to-back episodes from Series 11 are now in the worst possible series. Episode 6, I had The Woman Who Lived. Now, I really didn't like that two-parter, as you can probably tell, but The Woman Who Lived, again looking back, as much as I thought the episode was a little bit poor, one thing I really liked about it was how it delved into Ashilda's backstory a little bit. I remember not liking the ending, not liking the cat creature being the villain. You know, overall, it's not a very good episode. You know, let's be honest. I'm not praising it. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever, but there were small things that I liked, and it's much better than The Girl Who Died. So I am replacing it, but do not worry, not with Demons of the Punjab. Demons of the Punjab was a good episode, and it had some nice character scenes in there, and it was just nice to have an episode based around Yaz, to be honest. I think it was an episode that was needed, and I thought the Doctor had a very good performance in that episode too. So it's going to be replaced, but with the Almost People, which is the second part of a two-parter in Series 6. And it's a two-parter along with the Rebel Flesh that I do not like at all. I didn't like any of the side cast in it. I just remember it being a story I do not like, and it's probably one of the stories I've watched the least. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I haven't watched it enough, but that's because I've never really had any reason to go back and watch it enough. From when it aired up until now, it's never been a story I've enjoyed, never been a concept that's hooked me. So yeah, because of that, The Almost People will take its place as my least favourite Episode 6. Episode 7 now, and of course I have The Idiot's Lantern, which is going up against Kablam. And as you all know, I thought Kablam was one of the strongest episodes of Series 11. A very, very good story, a very good episode that I enjoyed very much. And it'll be nowhere near my worst possible series. And a lot of the Episode 7s across the board are pretty decent, and the only one that I really do not like to go back and rewatch is The Idiot's Lantern. I wouldn't say it's a terrible, atrocious episode that is just one of the worst ever, but there's just nothing about it that I really particularly like either. One thing that I really didn't like was The Wire. I thought The Wire was a very annoying villain, a villain that really only suited that environment. It was just an old woman screaming through a television. You know, there's an element of creepiness to it, but I just didn't really like her as a villain, and none of the characters I really engaged with either. I just feel like it's a very forgettable episode from Series 2, and comparing it to the others, it is just my least favourite. So The Idiot's Lantern will remain as my least favourite Episode 7. Episode 8 now, and we have Let's Kill Hitler. And it's gone up against The Witchfinders. And as I said, The Witchfinders, it's a pretty good episode. It doesn't blow me away, but it's good. And that's more than that can be said for Let's Kill Hitler, which I thought was the beginning of the end for Doctor Who Series 6. And I don't just mean that literally, I mean that metaphorically, because it just felt like after the amazing cliffhanger and the unbelievable amount of momentum that it carried from A Good Man Goes to War, it's a Stephen Moffat trait. He did it between Heaven Sent and Hellbent. He just takes a great cliffhanger and then follows it up with something completely different. And it just sucked the life and sucked the momentum out of Series 6. Seeing, Amy and Rory magically, it turns out that they've grew up with River. Just when you thought the Series 6 story arc and River's story was any more complicated, let's throw that in there. And yeah, when she did regenerate into River, she was just very annoying, very flirtatious. The story wasn't great either, and the Doctor might die here, you knew he didn't die. It wasn't believable, and it was just a mess, and it felt like the Series 6 story arc just come to a screeching halt at that point. And I think it's fair to say Series 6 never really recovered from Let's Kill Hitler. So yeah, it's an episode that I don't really enjoy. It did Series 6 no favours whatsoever, and will remain to be my least favourite Episode 8. Episode 9 now, and we have Sleep No More, which is an episode that I've not rewatched since we reviewed it, and I think, there's one side of me that thinks, well, should I rewatch it, give it a chance to see if it isn't worth being in my worst possible series, or should I just stay away from it because there's clearly a reason as to why I've never went back and rewatched it. And I remember Sleep No More being just a very, very tough watch. A very tough watch, a very difficult episode to enjoy. And I found the villains that were made of sleep from your eyes, I found that a very stupid concept. The found footage direction of the episode didn't work at all. And I just thought it was a very, very difficult episode. It ended so abruptly. It was just set out in such a weird way. And I think all the great ideas that Matt Gatiss had for that episode backfired massively, and Sleep No More is known to be, an episode that is universally disliked, I do believe, and it's one that I really have no desire to go back and rewatch at all. It's going up against It Takes You Away, and It Takes You Away is growing on me the more I sort of think about it. The frog thing irritated me a lot when I first watched it, but I think the rest of the story has a lot of good moments in there. So yeah, Sleep No More is definitely retaining its place as my least favourite episode 9. Episode 10, and as much as I found the Battle of Ranskua Av Kalos a very disappointing finale, as an episode on its own, I do remember saying in our review that if you stick it in any other series of Doctor Who, it would be ordinary. And that's more than can be said for In the Forest of the Night, which is the definition of pointless. It doesn't leave a single solitary footprint on Doctor Who and its chronology whatsoever. It's a pointless episode. The story is so hollow. They land on Earth, it's overgrown by trees, and then after a day or so, Earth does this thing that it always does when Earth is going through a catastrophic disaster, and a solar flare appears and destroys the trees, and that's it. I mean, you could take the Doctor, Clara, them stupidly annoying children, wooden Danny Pink, and you could take them out. You could take all of them out of the story, and it wouldn't make a single solitary difference. This episode is the definition of filler. It has no impact on Series 8 or Doctor Who in general at all. It's just terrible. And to top it all off, we end the episode finding out that this little girl's sister who'd gone missing was hiding in a flipping bush. I mean, the most intense scene in this episode was when Danny Pink fought off a tiger, and he did that with a torch. You know, I don't know what was going on in the writer's room when they written this episode together. I think they just went, we need something, just get it out there and we'll forget about it. In the Forest of the Night, yeah, it's just dreadful, and I can never see an episode being worse than that. It takes its place proudly as my least favourite episode 10. Episode 11, and this is actually quite a difficult one because I have Fear Her in there, and obviously, you know, there's only 10 episodes in Series 11, so Series 11 is out of the conversation now. So we're looking at Series 1 to Series 10, and Fear Her is a difficult one because Fear Her's not a bad episode. It really isn't. But episode 11, it's such a difficult decision to make because the lineup of episode 11s is so strong. You've got Boomtown, you've got Utopia, you've got Turn Left, you know, some incredible episodes, World Enough and Time. So Fear Her, you know, as good as it is, when I look along the list, it just is the weakest. And, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, it shouldn't be in it because it's a great story. It's average, I would still say. But it's sort of a nice concept with, you know, a little girl that this alien got inside her and she could suddenly draw things that come to life. And of course she wanted to draw the planet, which would have then destroyed it and made it disappear. It's a nice little idea, but I think it was more suited to maybe a CBBC or the Sarah Jane Adventures. And a lot of the episode 11s you will notice are quite big, important episodes that lead into the finale. And I think Fear Her just sort of sticks out, and it's a bit of an anomaly in Series 2, and I think it was just sort of filling the gap between the Satan Pit and Army of Ghosts. So I regretfully say that unfortunately Fear Her does remain to be my least favourite episode 11. Episode 12 now, and ho, we have Hellbent. Oh, my favourite episode. Hellbent will proudly stay as my least favourite episode 12. In fact, it's got a VIP position in my worst possible series. It is padlocked, it is solidified, it will remain there for the rest of time because Hellbent is the worst episode in Doctor Who history. And it's not because it's boring, it's not because, you know, it's slow or it drags. The first 15 minutes are alright, but it's because of how self-destructive it is of everything that came before it. Hellbent, it just took everything that Series 9 had done well, scrumpled it up in a ball, took a giant shit on it, and threw it in the bin. It's almost like Stephen Moffat said, did you like how Clara died in Face the Raven? Well, I don't give a shit about that. Did you like all the mental and physical torture the Doctor went through inside the confession dial just to reach Gallifrey? I don't give a shit about that either, because Gallifrey's going to hardly be in it, it's not going to play any part in it whatsoever, and Clara, who has just had this amazing death, she's left for the 51st time, is going to come back and ruin another Doctor Who episode. You know, I just do not understand why there was such a clear direction that this episode should have took, and it did for 10 minutes, which was the Doctor versus the Time Lords, but for some reason Stephen Moffat thought it was a great idea to undermine what death means in Doctor Who and bring back Clara by using the Time Lord. So that means that anyone who has potentially died ever that means anything to the Doctor, any death that meant anything to us viewers, doesn't matter, because the Doctor can simply go back and bring them back to life. And not only is that a stupid idea, but it's the way that it was executed, by the Doctor shooting somebody. Yes, he was a Time Lord, and a very good Time Lord at that, rest in peace Ken Bones, but not only did the Doctor kill him, he shot him with a gun, which the Doctor should never do. It undermines the Doctor's character, but no, of course, he will go to any length to save his precious Clara. No, the Doctor should never go to that length to save anybody. The Doctor is a character that saves the universe with a sonic screwdriver, with a time machine, with compassion, with words, with his brain, not with a flipping gun. I don't care if the Time Lord regenerated into a woman. The Doctor should never do that. It undermined his character, it undermined what death meant to Doctor Who, and it was a massive middle finger to everything Series 9 had done before it. And on top of that, the Doctor went and forgot Clara anyway. What a stupid episode. And the hybrid as well, to top it off, was never even really... It was never really reiterated what the hybrid was. One minute the Doctor knew what the hybrid was, then he didn't, then it was himself, then the Time Lords didn't know, then the Doctor didn't know, and then me just said, oh, it's a theory that it's you and Clara anyway. Just what a load of bullshit. Hell-bent. Oh, I knew I'd go off on a tangent. It is just an awful episode of Doctor Who, and one that I wish just didn't exist. In my mind, Heaven Sent was the end of Series 9, and that's that. I might as well put a flippin' padlock on it. Hellbent is the least favourite episode 12, my least favourite episode ever, and it always will be. Episode 13. Doesn't really get much better, because we have the Wedding of River Song, which again will remain there for the rest of time. The Wedding of River Song is another episode that it was a mess. Like I said earlier, from Let's Kill Hitler onwards, Series 6 never recovered, and I think you could sort of gather that Stephen Moffat was just making it up as he went along with the Wedding of River Song. It was just a very horrible episode to watch in terms of how it was structured. We were 1 minute travelling with the Doctor, who just didn't know if he wanted to die or not. 1 minute he did want to die, then he didn't. Then we'd cut back to him and Winston Churchill in this mishmash universe, which was just terrible. You know, they made just a very useless, tasteless gag on using the death of the Brigadier as well to then suddenly make the Doctor's decision. And then how does he save the universe? By marrying River Song. All they had to do was touch, hold hands, but no, he marries River, which then just reverts everything back to normal. Let's press that undo button. Yeah, The Wedding of River Song was another series finale that undermined everything that went before it, but Series 6 at that point was unrescuable, and The Wedding of River Song was a very bad effort at trying to sew this mess up that was Series 6 and the story arc of the Doctor dying, which was just, an idea gone wrong. So The Wedding of River Song will also remain to be my least favourite episode 13. And finally, we're on to the Christmas special. Now, of course, I have The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe as my least favourite, and as I said in my best possible series, Christmas specials are a difficult one for me, and they are very much split one side or the other. I'm a massive fan of the Russell T Davies Christmas specials, and not a fan of Moffat's, and it's nothing to do with Russell or Moffat as a person or as a writer. I just much prefer one style of Christmas special to the other, and that is that I like it when Christmas plays a small part in the story, but doesn't really override everything else that is going on. Russell had the perfect balance with that Christmas was there, but the narrative and the plot and the Doctor and the villain took the centre stage, whereas with Stephen Moffat's, he sort of took famous Christmas stories like A Christmas Carol or The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and just did a Doctor Who spin on it. And Christmas played too much of a part in his Christmas specials, in my opinion. So I'm not a fan of A Christmas Carol. I'm not a fan of The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. I'm not a fan of Last Christmas because Santa Claus was in it for some reason. The Husbands of River Song, The Return, they're all just poor Christmas specials. They might be a good Christmas special, but they're not a good story, and they're not a good narrative or a good episode of Doctor Who. And The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe has always been my least favourite because it just was a poor episode of Doctor Who solved by love. Oh, of course it was. Not for me. But it's not going to remain as my least favourite because at least that episode had some Christmas elements. I'm going to replace it with The Return of Dr. Mysterio, which, after 1 year of no Doctor Who, we get this. It was horrendous. you know, Doctor Who meets a superhero. And, you know, Doctor Who over the years has tried to match up and you know, sort of mishmash itself with other movies or other genres, and this was Doctor Who trying to mess up and mash itself with a superhero, and it just didn't work, because the Doctor is our superhero, not this random American guy whose storyline and character I couldn't have cared less about. It just didn't work in Doctor Who. It just felt like a rip-off of a Doctor Who episode more than anything, or a parody. It didn't feel like a legitimate canonised episode of Doctor Who, and it's one that I'd like to forget in a hurry. Nardol's part in the episode, it just didn't play a part in the episode. I didn't really realise or see why he was there, and yeah, the story as a whole just was very, very weak, and I think the worst part is that we'd waited an entire year with no Doctor Who for this, and I think that was the worst part about it. So, yeah, at least with The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, you can sort of look at it as a canon episode of Doctor Who and think, well, yeah, it's there at least. It sort of is there for a reason. The return of Dr. Mysterio just isn't, and I would have much rather us just had no episode at all that year than that. So, yeah, the return of Dr. Mysterio will now become my least favourite Christmas special. So then, guys, there you have it. My worst possible series is complete, and this is it in its entirety. So we have New Earth, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, The Curse of the Black Spot, Arachnids in the UK, The Saranga Conundrum, The Almost People, The Idiot's Lantern, Let's Kill Hitler, Sleep No More, In the Forest of the Night, Fear Her, Hellbent, The Wedding of River Song, and The Return of Dr. Mysterio. Good God, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it somehow has. But the main worry in all seriousness, and the main concern, what the best and worst possible series sort of do for me, is it takes away the hype. It takes away what is fresh in the memory of the most recent series of Doctor Who, which in this case is Series 11, and it just puts it in a very unique perspective where I can sort of compare it to all the other series in the easiest way possible. And that's the beauty of the best and worst possible series. And, you know, in the bubble of Series 11, in that moment, you can think, well, this is great, this is wonderful, this is better than this, or better than what's come before. But when putting it in this format, it is obvious to see that, you know, there's a reason why none of the episodes from Series 11 made it into my best possible series, but unfortunately, 2 episodes have made it into my worst possible series, which I think shows the quality of Series 11. Solid, without really exceeding or blowing my mind in any way, but then there were still them episodes that dropped below par, and unfortunately were a lot weaker than some that we've had before. And another trend I've noticed is that there's a few Chris Chibnall episodes in there as well, which isn't great at all. But nevertheless, that's my worst possible series, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do give this video a like if you have. Do subscribe to The Who Addicts for much more Doctor Who Series 11 content to come. We'll have our Series 11 overview to come, an episode ranking from the series, as well as ranking where Series 11 is in all of the modern series of Doctor Who. As well as that, do comment below your worst possible series. That'd be very interesting to see what you guys think. You can follow us across all of social media by finding the links on our website, and you can donate to us on Patreon if you so wish. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.